and still is one of the finest principals that I had under my time there, and continues to be strong. I could go on, but I will tell you, her building, over the years under her leadership, has just taken on a culture that breeds success from the day those kids walk in to that school building to the day we graduated them out. And just a couple things, let me tell you, of what she does and her staff does. There's hardly a morning that Kathy and all of her assistant principals aren't at the front door greeting the kids. It starts day one, every day of schooling. Now, we all know stuff comes up and someone's got to deal with it, but the bottom line is they're there every single day to greet those kids. And what they do with some of the freshmen bringing them in is crazy. Now, if you know Dublin Jerome, you know it's the high end, the quote-unquote richer end, and Tartan and so forth, of affluency. But I will tell you, talk about someone who can grow high-end kids, okay? And with the demographics that are in the district, work with everything from kids who do struggle and have that bad home life, but also a high population of special needs. It doesn't matter in that building. Now, the last thing I'll say is this. It's always, Dublin Jerome, since day one, has been known as a nationally recognized school. Academics are out the roof. And a lot of people think, oh yeah, they get good kids. But I think some of what you'll hear today, you'll start to get that. Dublin Jerome was slated and had an opportunity to be part of the U.S. pilot for PISA. PISA is the international assessment, as you probably know. That's when they say, well, U.S. ranks here, and China and Japan is here, or whatever. Well, the kids in our building actually had a chance to take that test and be part of that. And then we were given basically the scores of how we did, our kids did at Jerome compared to other kids in the world. And I will tell you, Kathy's building, those kids tested better in every subject area than everyone in the world. So obviously, some pretty good things. We're finally getting a break, just back from vacation. We got her up and running here, so Kathy, I'll turn over to you. Thanks so much for being here today.
I appreciate your kind words. Thanks. And I can say it was a wonderful opportunity to work for Dave Axner, Dr. Axner, in terms of being able to build leadership capacity and share leadership. So I appreciate the opportunity. I know there's a lot of good administrators in the room. So some of what he said, these are just some of what particularly our community, I think most of us never set out, we certainly don't set as a goal to be a National Blue Ribbon school. We've been open 10 years, we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary. So we were able to earn National Blue Ribbon. You have to have 5 years of data, and then you have to wait for another 5 years and see. So it's sustainability, data over time. You can't have that one special class come through that many of us have. But certainly we're proud of our work because we really attribute it to our terrific staff, our wonderful kids who work so hard, our parents and the greater Dublin community. But those are some of those external indicators that Dave mentioned. The PISA test we're really excited about, only because we really didn't know nationally in reading, math, and science how our kids would stack up. It was one of those things where you couldn't give them any incentive. There wasn't any reward. We practically stood on the stage, put an American flag saying, "God bless America," and begged them to do as well as they possibly could to represent us well. And they did. And Shanghai, the year we took it, was the highest performing school district in the world, and we outscored them all in reading, math, and science. So those people that say that there is something broken in U.S. education, and that Finland is ahead of us and Shanghai are ahead of us, it's not. Public education is still a wonderful place to be. And I've spent my entire career in public education and been very proud of that. So I would just like to know a little bit about you. I really wish I could speak with all of you. I want to do a shout out to Jim. Where's Jim? Thank you, because this presentation, the suit is already sweated through because the they don't run Keynote, and it's in Keynote, and I didn't bring a dongle. So thanks to Jim, with 2 minutes to spare, we were able to pull this off. So in terms of today, I want to learn just a little bit about you. How many of you, first of all, are building administrators? Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Summer's a good time, isn't it? All that paperwork, simultaneously ending one year and starting the other one. It's just amazing, just a crazy time. How many of you are district administrators, central office administrators in some way? Okay, others, that's great. One of the things I wanted to do was define some terms that we're going to be referring to, because truly professional learning community work is, I believe, what really sets us apart in our ability to try to impact every child in every one of our classrooms every day. So Rick DeFore, I was mesmerized by Rick DeFore 13 years ago when I was an assistant principal at Dublin Kaufman. That's before he was making $20,000 a day and nobody could afford him anymore. And he came to Franklin County Educational Service Center where I was attending a principal's academy. And I listened to him, and it spoke everything to my heart that I believed in particular a high school should be. Teachers working in teams together. Not having kids be lucky and get that one great English 1 teacher, but every teacher teaching the exact same curriculum. You know, you didn't have your grammar English teacher who hammered the grammar and did a million grammar worksheets, as opposed to the To Kill a Mockingbird teacher who was in 6 weeks, because no one should ever graduate from high school without To Kill a Mockingbird. By the way, I'm a big fan. But so Dublin Kaufman at that time was 2,400 students. It had 180 certified staff, and most of them didn't even know each other's names. So when we came back from this principal's academy, and I really started talking to our principal, Steve Beth, at that point about professional learning community work. We had teachers that didn't even know they didn't know each other's names. It was very departmentalized. Your very traditional high school structure. And so let's just talk about how DeFore defines professional learning community work. And that's, there might be some professional learning community definitions out there, but I want to focus on DeFore because everything we do is based on becoming a better professional learning community every single day at Dublin Jerome. Why? Because we have kids in our classrooms whose parents are entrusted. We are entrusted with them to learn everything they possibly can and be everything they can possibly be, and we only have them for very short, 4 short years. So DeFore defines it by doing shared mission, vision, values, and goals, collaborative staff teams focused on learning, collective inquiry into best practice in our current reality, action orientation and experimentation, being creative, and then having a result orientation. I've tried to have the presentation, rather than try to do 13 years of work in about an hour presentation, I've tried to select some things from all of those characteristics of a PLC. How many of you are involved in PLC work at some point in your own buildings? Okay, that's great. And when we first started in it, hardly anybody was really getting started in it. It's interesting, isn't it, what a journey and a struggle it is every day. And I mean that in all sincerity. I spent a half a day yesterday staring at our D&F report that I'll talk about here in a minute, wondering once again why our kids are unable to score on our semester exams at the same letter grade, as their quarterly grades. And we've been doing this for all 10 years at Jerome, and it's a constant struggle for us. But that's another topic. So those of you involved in that work know that the 4 questions that we have to ask ourselves every day as educators in a professional learning community are those 4 questions. What is it, and these are all answered collaboratively in the same subject teams. Every one of our staff members is required to be on the same subject team. And I'll talk a little bit what that means, and I'm sure you do that also. It's hard to do many times in a high school schedule. And you have those singletons that don't have anyone else in the building. Now, we have 3 high schools, so for us, we can link them up with the other high schools, which again is a kind of a time challenge, and but anyhow. So collaboratively, when we are talking about what we teach every day, more importantly, what our students learn, it's based on these 4 questions. Our teachers meet weekly in their same subject teams, and they always, we don't have a topic of a month. You know, we don't do Stiggins. We do Stiggins, but we do Stiggins only as it relates to these 4 questions. What is it we want students to know collaboratively in Algebra 2, in biology, in modern world history? And that's an interesting discussion, isn't it, when you're working with your staff? Because designing that scope and sequence in and of itself so that teachers can actually agree on the learning targets for Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 or modern world history or bio, or name your 200 courses that you offer, and then saying this is what we're going to teach first semester, everybody, all 6 biology teachers, first semester, so we can give that common exam, and second semester and give the common exam as a challenge. What is it we want students to learn? Those learning targets are what question 2 is based on, which are the assessments. Which again, for us, we've started with our semester exam assessments in terms of making those common. But now we also we've done much better the last 5 years, although it's a constant battle. Now that short cycle assessments, diagnostic, formative, but how do we know if they've learned it? How do we know if they've learned it? And we try to again do those with common assessments that the teachers can then analyze the data together and hopefully be able to say to each other, my students didn't do nearly as well on vocabulary acquisition as your students. Why? Why is that? Because it is important. If we have a learning target on that first question, then we better know whether or not they've learned it. Otherwise, why are we teaching it? So the third question, what do we do when they don't learn it? That's our pyramid of interventions, and you have I think the blue handout has our pyramid of interventions. It's a 2-sided handout that we've developed. It's a systemic response. It is a learning emergency at Dublin-Jerome if one student is not learning through the SST process, through our own teachers. But it's systemic. It shouldn't be left up to individual teachers to necessarily deal with a student who's not learning it. You know and I know it. Drug issues, economic issues, divorce, mental health issues. We also have one of the most heavily medicated student bodies, I believe, because of the price of privilege. You're not familiar with that book? That's a wonderful book if you're from an affluent community, The Price of Privilege. We did a book study on it, you know, later. And then what do we do when they already know it? Because we all have those gifted kids. Heck, every kid in my building is gifted. Well, if you would talk to the parents, every child is gifted. That's true. I'm sure you have that too. But what do you do when they already know it? We do have kids that can come in and take that test. Now, due to credit flexibility, that's helped a little bit. But to be real honest, where's that enrichment? And as the 4 tells us and reminds us, collaboration by invitation does not work. You're either all in and your entire staff is dedicated to collaboration in some way, or you have isolated students who are missing that opportunity to get taught well.